I gotta say, that's a fall from grace to go from like you're getting your company acquired from a few multi-billion dollars to I have to go in the maker governance forum. That's just like
not a dividend.
It's a tale of two Kwans.
Now your losses are on someone else's balance sheet.
Generally speaking, airdrops are kind of pointless anyways.
Unnamed trading firms who are very involved.
I like that ETH is the ultimate Ponzi.
DeFi protocols are the antidote to this problem.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chopping Block. Every couple of weeks, the four of us get together and give the industry insider's perspective on the crypto topics of the day. So quick intros. First, we got Tom, the DeFi maven and master of memes.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got Tarun, the Gigabrain and Grand Poobah at Gauntlet.
Yo.
And joining us today, special guest, we have Brother Bing, who is the heiress of Hotpot DAO.
What's up, guys?
And then I'm Haseeb, the head hype man at Dragonfly. So we're early stage investors in crypto, but I want to caveat that nothing we say here is investment advice, legal advice, or even life advice. Please see choppingblock.xyz for more disclosures. So, okay, Brother Bing. First of all, what is the backstory on Brother Bing?
Yeah, so my name is Shuyao, real name. I don't know if you guys remember in 2020, DeFi summer, there were a bunch of guys who were psyopsing as girls on Twitter. So then I thought, why don't I do the opposite? I'm a girl that's psyopsing as a dude on Twitter. Then it's Brother Bing. But also, I'm from Beijing, and the Beijing girls tend to be very bro-ish. So then
Is that right?
Yeah, so
okay.
Bro Bing Bing, sometimes people call me.
Bro Bing Bing.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Did you lean into your character and become the character you started as?
Yeah, you have to cultivate it.
Okay.
Yeah. So now it's getting really prominent.
Give the listeners some context. What does Bing mean here? Why Bing?
Yeah, so...
The search engine, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So dabbing actually has some meaning in Chinese. Dabbing means big pancake. And that's actually how Chinese community call Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a giant orange pancake. So I used to have a column with Decrypt where I used to write about crypto stuff and crypto in China. So my editor was like, what's your column's name? I would be like, oh, it's dabbing. And then I just took the name on.
I like that. I like that. So besides being the Hotpot DAO heiress, you are also a co-founder of MegaETH.
Yep.
It's a project that a lot of people are talking about. You guys are making a lot of buzz and getting a lot of hype. I think a lot of people maybe don't know what MegaETH is. They've heard the name.
They know it's a fashion brand.
Yes,
at the least. At the least.
It's memetically very powerful. But what exactly is MegaETH? Give us the sort of elevator room, 2-sentence explanation.
Yeah, absolutely. MegaETH is the first real-time blockchain. By inheriting Ethereum security and decentralization, we're able to create an execution environment that not only has super high throughput, aka 100,000 TPS, but also extremely low latency. Think about sub-millisecond, hence the real-timeness. This has never been done before in crypto. We are extremely excited about our protocol, but more importantly, we're extremely excited about the application that's going to be built on MegaETH, because we believe that they are pairing the Web2 performance with the crypto economics and the P2P network.
Yeah. So, and MegaETH notably is a layer 2 and is an EVM-based layer 2, which is
the first real-time blockchain was layer 2.
First real-time blockchain, which is a EVM-based layer 2. And you are a relatively unique person because I think you're one of the most global people I know. It used to be global head of BD at Consensus. Is that right? And you've split your time. I mean, obviously you come from China. You spent a lot of time in the US, in New York, then you're now in Dubai. You've kind of been a globetrotter for as long as I've known you. And you run this thing called Hotpot DAO.
Yeah.
So what is Hotpot DAO?
Yeah, it's a cult.
It's a cult. Okay,
yeah,
go on.
It's a food-based cult. It's better than 2020 food DeFi coins. So I started Hotpot DAO in 2020. Back then, there was a conference called AmCon. Anyone remember?
AmCon?
Yeah, it's a conference for DAO. Back then when DAO was cool.
That did not age well.
That did not age well. So I was, running BD at Consensus, and anything new it just poked my interest. So I went to Denver, and it's a very small conference, and in the middle, there's no Asian food after 3 days. And I was just like, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. I can't eat another sandwich or more meat. So I was like hanging out in the cafe with a bunch of people. The pseudo-swap guys were there, some dudes from Polychain. I was just like, yo guys, like anyone wants to go for Hotpot? And people were so excited about it. And I Googled this Hotpot place, which was like 30 minutes away in the middle of nowhere. We thought we were going to get kidnapped. So we all went there. We had hotpot. And I just joked. I was like, oh, you know what? This is the first hotpot DAO. And it really works because I really hate crypto networking. I hate stepping into a room, really noisy. You're like trying to hold your drink. You don't really want to drink. And you don't know who to have a conversation with. But with hotpot, right, you just sit down, you eat your food, you talk about life. So I think it's a really easy way to make friends. So the first one was in Denver in 2020. But after that, I basically have been running hotpot DAO in every conference that I go to, place I visit. And hotpot DAO is actually extremely decentralized right now. I say it's the only DAO with product market fit because I used to have people who were willing to pay me to come to hotpot DAO because it's just like the most popular event.
Yeah, wow.
But we also have DAO members who are hosting hotpot DAO all over the world.
Okay.
So a really strong chapter in Hong Kong, Singapore. We have one in Thailand. They just started without letting me know. And they were like, yo, can we use your brand? I was like, do it. We have a very strong one in New York. It's founded by Dan from Eigenlayer. And he just like rents out this hotpot restaurant, have everybody come in, a free flow of hotpot cream barbecue, alcohol as well. So yeah, I don't even know what's happening with hotpot at the moment. I've been sufficiently decentralized.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Okay, wow.
Well, I also think it's funny that this was the year that a hotpot company IPO'd on NYSE, right?
Yeah, Heidi Lau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're in New York now, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
So you're the hot pot.
Well, no, I wanted to make it to the Hotpot DAO event, but apparently I wasn't cool enough, and I was denied DAO membership. So, fortunately, it looks like you were right. It's very difficult to attend, get Hotpot DAO membership.
I think it's a sign you may have to change your aesthetic a little bit.
I know. I'm the wrong kind of Asian, apparently, to get into Hotpot DAO. Okay, so we are wrapping up the week of SBC. SBC was last week. We got some interesting commentary from, but I'd like to get some reflections from everybody on what you thought of SBC. Last week we said that SBC had rebranded to Science of Blockchain and that it was a very cringy rebrand. The SBC team apparently was not thrilled to hear that we thought it was very cringy, and they also moved to clarify that it is now being shared. It's being rotated between New York with Cornell Tech, which is associated with IC3, and then Stanford and Berkeley are the three universities that it's going to rotate. So it's actually going back to Berkeley next year. It's not staying in New York. So, Science of Blockchain conference. Tarun, what's your feeling now that the conference is wrapped up? Any reflections?
I think there was a time in like 2018, 2019, 2020 where it was more of a place where like people would come with like new research and it'd be like, oh, this is the new ZK algorithm that like has a speed up, or this new consensus protocol matters. But I think in the world in 2024, bluntly speaking, I don't think there's that much left in consensus. It feels like people are extracting like very tiny improvements. So it's like, all right, there's not that much there. And then that too, the side events for consensus have better, kind of more relevant research. SBC feels a little like stale and slow. I think in academic conferences, this is often the case that happens where like a conference gets too big or kind of stale and a new one shows up. I think the weird part about SBC is like there seem to be too many like no one even seems to watch the research talks anymore, and also 90% of the research feels like I read it 6 months ago or was online 6 months ago. And so it feels a little dated. Like I feel like when
Isn't that also true at academic conferences that like you post the preprint before you ever show up for the conference?
For sure.
Everyone reads it first.
For sure. But I think there's something weird about this conference. Like it used to feel like there's a tighter loop. Oftentimes a lot of people post preprints when they get in to a conference, or if they don't get in, whatever, like at that time.
Yeah.
But somehow SBC just feels like it's dated, and it also doesn't really represent applications very well.
Well, it's not supposed to, right? It's supposed to be a research conference.
No, but there's research on applications, like DeFi research, right? Like it's very underrepresented there.
Okay, so let's say that you were to start the successor to SBC. SBC is already old hat.
Is this a hypothetical thing, or are you saying the thing I have done?
Tell me about the thing you've done.
I did start a sort of DeFi research conference that we had our first one in May.
What's it called?
TLDR, which is the latest in DeFi research.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But like the other thing about SBC is there's all these side events. Like there's the application summit, there's the consensus summit, there's the MEV, and those were much more in the know. I feel like it reminds me of music festivals, right? It's like you go to music festival, it's awesome, and then you go the next year, and it's like, yeah, okay, a little less awesome. Like some of your favorite artists, like, nah, that place is boring, sucks, not going. And then you go the third time, and it's like, oh, okay, now it's like too commercial. And then you find out that there's some after hours outside that like is like now much more interesting, creatively than the main conference. And then all of a sudden you start going to that and you don't go to the main. Like I feel like that SBC has gone through the music festival cycle. That's just my. And so the main
that explains a lot of the people who are showing up to the SBC every year. Is that?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's
like
also funny because there's like so many more investors and researchers there, which already tells you it's like over.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that like I show up to anything at SBC and I get so many people pitching me trying to raise money, I'm like, okay, this is not an academic. Yeah. It's not an academic event.
Yeah, it was funny because I went from SBC to this Zero Knowledge podcast this other podcast that I'm on. So I guess sorry, listeners, for talking about this. It's like a more research conference. I went to the hackathon in Montreal and there was literally zero investors. It was actually funny. The winning hackathon project was something where you could breathalyze yourself and prove in Zero Knowledge that you were you were not drunk.
This is what happens when you have no investors present.
It's not commercial, but it was like people did fun, crazy shit like that. There's. That's what I'm saying. I feel like SBC had that in back in the 2015 to 2020 era, and then post pandemic, it just hasn't kind of not the same.
Yeah. Reflections, SBC.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. I did notice like some of the papers were like from like 2023, and I was like, it's been a while. But I don't know. I feel like at these conferences too, like most of it is kind of used as like meeting people and networking and kind of seeing like for us portfolio companies. And so even at like non-academic conferences, I'm still not even really attending the talks and kind of going and seeing people. So I feel like there hasn't actually been that much of a change for me.
But the beauty of academic conferences, at least the talk teaches you something. But that was not what I felt like.
I remember the first SBC when it was still called Stanford Blockchain Conference. I sat through like probably 40 to 50% of the talks and like live tweeted notes about all the talks. And like, I could not imagine that being the best use of my time today. Like it was a very different time in that like there was so much. It's almost like this heroic period. Like, I often read about the heroic period of physics in like the 30s and 40s when people were inventing just like basically what we think of as like modern physics in a very small period of time by a very small number of people. And it just felt like science was moving so fast. And that's kind of how 2017, 2018 felt, is that there were so many new ideas and there was so much just uncovering this vast frontier of what was possible with blockchains. And today it just doesn't feel like that. And that's normal, right? But like, it just, the excitement of sitting and being like, I wonder what I'll learn today. I haven't felt that in a very long time.
To Shuyao's point though, in her intro, like I do think the application side is like more interesting, which is why I think the infrastructure conferences kind of suck now, to be honest.
Yeah. What's your take on
that
SBC?
would be my point, actually.
Sorry for front-running you.
Yeah.
Sorry for front-running.
I enjoyed the previous SBC as well. But this one, I think I went with a different identity. I was hunting for application builders. So I stopped by the actual conference, but I went to this one called BAS, right? Blockchain Application Summit. I walked in, there was no application.
Was there not?
You look at the talk and all the, there's just no application. So I feel like we're in the awkward space of the underlying technology innovation is not that exciting. There's nothing groundbreaking, but you also don't get really exciting application builder, right?
You're telling me everybody there was an L1 looking for applications.
We're just trying to beat each other.
I see.
But on the bright side, I do think that because this year is in New York, gives me a very good intro into the New York builder scene. At the conference, I got to meet fresh college graduates who are like really open to ideas. So they're not builders yet. So that was just tremendously helpful to us. And then I think the side events were mid.
Any ones you want to call out?
Yeah, who are you calling out?
The one that I saw you at.
Wait, which one is
Great.
this? Come on,
Which,
you gotta.
yeah,
you gotta
which one? I went to a bunch.
It's just, but see, it's the same speakers going to different side events. It's just the same thing.
I will say there was only one of them that I actually presented new research at. The other ones were like I recycled.
Yeah.
So tells you something.
Yeah.
The one with new research also had like 20 people. So
Yeah.
for
Tough.
better or worse,
Yeah.
that's just how it is.
Yeah. But yeah, I think in general, I would say SBC is still a much better conference quality than many others in other parts of the world.
One thing I would say, there were a lot more undergrads to your point at this conference this year than I think I saw even in like 2022, 2021. I kind of feel like the AI fatigue is like undergrads are actually coming back, which is like an interesting. Last year, I feel like it was like no undergrads.
Last year was like peak AI hype is such that you could be moderately technical and raise money for a seed round of like AI for dentistry or whatever. It's like some stupid ChatGPT wrapper.
Dentacoin, but AI.
Exactly. AI Dentacoin. And
AI Dentacoin girlfriend.
Yes, but that phase has very much ended, right? That the ability for like a random Stanford grad or Columbia grad to just go raise like $5 million to do some random ChatGPT wrapper, like that's very much done. And so I think the reality that's setting in for a lot of folks who are entrepreneurial and just graduating from college is they realize in AI, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to contribute anything because it requires like either PhD level contributions to a foundation model, which is that's even hard because all these foundation models are crashing and burning and they're just rapidly depreciating assets that can only be funded by huge companies. Or you like pick the exact right vertical and have this, full court press, like a, legal, ChatGPT for law or whatever, this kind of thing. But it's really hard.
This reminds me, somehow you have become a influenza for decentralized AI. Tell us how this happened.
Okay. So this is also a little bit strange to me. I was just talking about this with Brother Bing before we started rolling. So I've been learning a lot about AI over the last couple of years because crypto was doing pretty slow in the bear market, and obviously AI was I think it's pretty obvious that what's happening right now with large language models is one of the most important technology shifts in the last decade. So naturally, I'm spent a lot of time learning about it, studying it, and like learning some about machine learning, which I wasn't super knowledgeable about before. And once all the decentralized AI stuff started getting hot, I wanted to learn about it. And the way that I generally learn about a new space is I write about it. Because if I write about something and I'm sort of forced to teach other people, then I have to understand it better than, in order to communicate it effectively. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to write like an overview of decentralized AI because I keep getting these pitches and I don't really understand what they're all doing and what the landscape is. And so I wrote a piece and that piece went, moderately viral. And then I gave a talk basically just summarizing the piece, and that talk went fairly viral. And the thing that struck me most of all is that like, it's not a very complex space, if you know just like the basics of machine learning. A lot of investors who are investing in the space do not have even that level of understanding of what the hell is going on in the space. And you can kind of see it from the way that a lot of projects are getting funded, is that the VCs who are funding this stuff are just like embarrassingly ignorant of what's happening in the space. And so I don't know how I became a decentralized AI. Like that's literally it. That's all I've done is just like wrote one blog post. But that's enough right now in the space in order to get a lot of respect from founders and builders. So yeah, I don't consider myself an expert by any means, but relative to VCs, it reminds me a lot of when I first got into crypto VC, which is, this was like early 2018. I remember I had just started
because you were at a fund that only invested in L1s.
That was most of what
true?
there was at that time. What else was there in 2018?
0x.
Yeah, true.
Well, you were working there, right?
Yeah. 0x was like one of the few applications that had a token at that time.
I couldn't think of any.
Yeah, what was it? There was like IOTA, there was Litecoin, like Ripple, like that was the landscape.
You say
at that
I
time.
had 2 more times Eric Wall was going to bust through this wall and like punch you.
Yeah, and so I just started as a crypto VC, and I remember I went to like I was so nervous. I had so much imposter syndrome about how I know nothing. I just came into this industry. how could I possibly become an investor and like give advice to founders and judge their products? Like, I don't know shit.
Welcome to the industry.
I know. And so I remember I went to my first investor dinner and I met a bunch of other investors and we were just like talking about whatever's going on in the industry. And after that dinner, I was like, never mind, I'm totally fine. Like the level, I thought I knew nothing. And then I was like, wait, these investors don't even know nothing. You know, it's like that was the thing that ultimately gave me confidence to be able to say like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I don't know as much as like these guys I really respect.
Do you think there are any decentralized AI investments that will be successful?
I do.
The current.
I mean, I think it's quite low. So first thing I'll say is that projects, I expect them all to evolve, right? I don't think anybody is going to be able to, you know, it's I sort of, when I describe these sort of frontier type networks, it's very much like, you know, Christopher Columbus saying like, okay, I'm going to go find India. And then he just goes and starts sailing, you know, and like almost certainly your path when you're sailing through uncharted waters where no one knows where the demand is, no one knows where the product market fit is, almost certainly it's going to change as you keep going. So if you look at something like Near or even Solana, right, they've changed really dramatically from what the original description of the project was, of originally how it was supposed to work, right? Like, and they iterate and they kind of move more in the direction of, here's where the demand is, here's what people want, here are all the things that people are complaining about that we have to address over time. And I think a lot of these Gen 1 crypto AI projects will eventually do that. They will respond to demand and they will sort of fix the broken incentives and so on. Some of them won't. Some of them won't figure it out in time. And some of them were just too early and they end up becoming these stepping stones that other people will, you know, jump on top of. But I do think there is something at this intersection, but it has to be cost efficient, has to actually be useful to people, and it has to plug into demand. And that's the thing that right now is missing on most of these crypto AI startups is that they just make no contact with the demand side. It's all aggregating supply. And aggregating supply without actually tapping into demand is a trap that we've fallen into crypto over and over and over again.
I mean, they've fallen into it in AI too.
Oh yeah. No, to be clear. But if you look at, you know, if you look at the GPU marketplaces, right, and you compare them to like, you know, you guys are investors in Together, like Together or Lambda or CoreWeave, like there's not a demand problem on those businesses, right? Those businesses can barely serve the demand they're getting. But the opposite is true in crypto land, which tells us, okay, there's a real problem that can be solved with a better product. But that product is not yet forthcoming, and there's a lot of work to figure out how to create that product that can stand toe-to-toe with those other
I mean, there's
products.
just a lot of adverse selection in the crypto training networks. I feel like there's also this problem of like AI is inherently better in some ways when centralized. Like it's easier to have centralized data provisioning. You can do things like RAG, which is like impossible to do when you try to decentralize. Like, I think it. That's why I was curious what your take on it is.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Is that, you know, going after use cases that are not well served by a decentralized network is going to result in failure. And like you have to find what is the niche that my different market structure. And the other thing too that you can't underestimate is that, you know, demand often increases in response to changes in the underlying world, right? So like, you know, one example of this is DAI, right? DAI demand changed dramatically when you started to see more and more blacklisting from you know, the centralized stablecoins. And the same thing I think is likely to happen with AI. We're very, very early into the intersection of AI and geopolitics.
Never forget that Richard Hart was once the largest DAI holder.
Yeah.
He might still be.
I think, what's the name of the...
Hex?
Not Hex, it was like his like DeFi thing, like Pulse.
Pulse.
I think it might still be the largest DAI holder, actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's some somewhat embarrassing fact.
Right. And like, my point is that as AI inevitably is going to become politicized, and inevitably there's going to be large fights. I mean, you already see it in China, right? There was an article I was reading in China talking about how in order to launch an AI product in China, the party basically has like essentially these like challenge response pairs. That's like, okay, I will ask you like 100 politically sensitive questions and you must like not answer 100 of them or like 95 of them in order for you to be eligible to like go public with your AI product.
Forget about China though. I feel like Europe is going to be the first place.
Oh
that
yeah,
bans.
Europe. I mean,
Europe is
but
just going to like
that's the
ban
thing. China's
everything.
already there, right? Europe is trying to join China as fast as they can.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we'll see what happens in the US. And I think it really, none of this stuff is predetermined. You know, I think it is really just the people in power and the way in which politics plays out as to how technologies get regulated. So I don't think there's any predestination in any of this.
So MegaETH should not pivot to be a AI crypto coin.
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Okay,
Pick your spot. Pick your spot.
No, but you should attract those projects because that's transaction fee demand.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a seller of block space. And actually, we work with a few crypto AI projects, and I think
Right.
the problem you describe, everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
It's like people pretend that they don't exist. Almost.
That is a big thing
It's
in
a
crypto.
bit, yeah. It's bothering me sometimes.
I feel like they should just go be selling in Europe and China, like to all these people who are like, I'm banned from using XYZ model.
I mean, yeah, you are kind of competing with just VPNs though, which is also a pretty good product. But in China, they're increasingly difficult to get your hands on. In Europe, it's still pretty easy to VPN, but in China, obviously, I mean, you know this very well. So yeah,
But I feel like in Europe though, they're actually systematically trying to ban even using like the kind of models within Google and stuff, right? Like they're getting mad at the big players. So like your web browsing experience might look very different in Europe in like 6 months to the point that you get such different results that you might use a different search engine.
I could see that. I could see that. Okay, so let's get into some news. There's been some drama this week over WBTC. So we don't talk a lot about WBTC on the show, but WBTC, for those of you who don't know, it is a tokenized version of Bitcoin that originally was custodied by BitGo. So BitGo, very well-known custodian in the space. And WBTC has kind of been a DeFi stalwart. So sort of imagine it like Tether, but for Bitcoin, where basically, literally, it's not a fancy decentralized blah, blah, blah thing. They just keep the Bitcoin in a multi-sig. And, BitGo is like, yo, we're good for it. We're regulated, just like Circle or Tether.
It is one very important difference from Tether because it was founded by a consortium. That there were multiple minters, so it wasn't just one company, which I think was like why people were much more comfortable with it. Because I remember people in DeFi used to fight about, could we even list WBTC even though it has so much liquidity on Uniswap? Like the early Compound DAO governance fights over WBTC were so incredible, and this tiny thing of having the consortium over minting was the reason it got listed and Tethernet wasn't. And that was like what they drew the line at.
Who was in the consortium? I know CoinList was in there. Who else in the consortium?
Kyber wrote a lot of code.
I was going to say that, but I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. But I guess they were.
Yeah, well, there's also different roles. There's like minter, and there's like broker, and there's something else. So
it was the first intent-based.
Yeah. Oh, okay, very nice. All right.
It's all these like
doesn't have a token.
All these intent people who just joined crypto since that era just like missed out on all the fights that are exactly the same as the fights that they're having now.
Yeah, well, what's old is new. Anyway, okay, so WBTC, the OG Bitcoin the Bitcoin peg on Ethereum, on August 9th, BitGo announced that they were going to move WBTC to become multi-jurisdictional custody, starting a joint venture in Hong Kong in partnership with Justin Sun.
Wait. Technically with BitGlobal.
With BitGlobal, BitGlobal, which is a company that has some affiliation with Justin Sun, not super clear. There's an ownership structure or whatever. None of this has been disclosed exactly, but they made very clear in their talks in public and in the governance forums that Justin Sun is affiliated with this endeavor in a way that has not been yet specified. So Justin Sun, of course, the founder of Tron, somebody who's had occasional legal troubles, maybe regular legal troubles, and also a diplomat and
former
His
diplomat.
Highness
Former diplomat. Okay,
something.
yeah, His Royal Highness. What is it?
But I thought it got taken away.
Did it?
Really?
Because it has an expiration date.
Okay.
They
Well,
expire.
But Tron USDT hit the highest monthly volume ever in volume transferred. So
Okay, and Tron has been doing quite well.
Tron USDT I for all of the potential negatives about Justin Sun, there are two very big positives, which I think people forget. USDT on Tron is actually used in the real world, and he's the biggest restaker. So
His liquidity itself.
his liquidity in DeFi is
Liquidity incarnate.
He is liquidity as a person.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. So Justin Sun is going to be affiliated now with this new WBTC transfer. And of course, WBTC, just to give you a sense of scale, WBTC has about $9.2 billion circulating of WBTC on Ethereum. And it's got a big presence in DeFi. It's in Aave, it's in Compound, it's in Maker. More than 30% of WBTC is held just in those four protocols. So on August 10th, the day later, Monet Supply, who's a very active governance-y person in the Maker ecosystem, he proposed to offboard WBTC as collateral on Maker. And this has caused kind of a firestorm of controversy of is this an overreaction? Should MakerDAO offboard WBTC? This kind of caused a downstream question to also be asked in Aave. I think Aave is pressing pause and saying, we'll decide in a couple months after seeing how things play out. So the proposal is not to, eliminate all of the current loans, but basically to prevent any new loans from being drawn against WBTC. But right now, DAI, how much DAI is there's about $150 million of DAI, sorry, 150 million DAI of out of 5 billion of total DAI circulating that's minted against WBTC. So it's significant, but it would not be catastrophic to Maker to offboard WBTC as collateral in that ecosystem. But Mike Belshi, who's the CEO of BitGo, was in the governance forums arguing, hey, this is a big nothing burger. Everything's okay. Like, we're happy to have you get an attorney and come in and diligence this stuff, but we're not going to tell you in public how it all works. And so there's a lot of sniping and going back and forth, and kind of some of the messy internals of crypto are being
I got to say, that's a fall from grace to go from like you're getting your company acquired from a few multi-billion dollars to I have to go in the Maker governance forum. That's just like that's like a real fall from grace.
It is always a tough look when somebody comes to ingratiate themselves to a governance forum.
I really do,
and has never been. It's like this is this person's first post.
Yeah,
it's like
that's true. That's true.
Whenever you see that, you're always like,
we never want to do your first post in a governance forum. That's always a bad day.
I actually love those, or even when people are duking it out on crypto Twitter, because so often it's with an anon with a ridiculous name. Like I believe Herpes Cat was going back and forth with Mike Belshi on the Maker forum, and so I'm like, surely Mike has better things to be doing with his time other than duking it out with Herpes Cat on the nature of WBTC and Maker. But there you go.
I mean, you got to feel bad for him. That failed acquisition just really was that sucked.
But the rumor said that the failed acquisition because he was not able to provide the audit report.
I agree, but I'm just saying it seemed like it was this close to closing, and then somehow very last minute was.
I mean, this was when the market was collapsing, right?
Yes.
So it's not surprising that they found something.
But the thing is, the deal started in like peak of the bull market, right before Luna.
Oh yeah, I mean that's how this all.
Yeah.
I mean, any deal that's drug out. Well, the market is going down 60% is probably not going to close.
Yeah.
At the previous price, especially if there's any cash.
I guess the only one that I remember that happening was the thing that Stellar bought in the last cycle. Do you remember they bought Chain.com?
Oh yeah.
That was like one of those that in my memory, I always have these memories of these like particular acquisitions that tell you a lot about the candor of the market participants.
Right. Okay. So, Tarun, what's your take on the WBTC drama? Overblown? Do you think it's reasonable? I mean, it almost feels like a sort of character-driven question.
So a lot of this kind of, I would say a lot of the reasons people are a little weary of Justin in lending protocols is there was this centralized stablecoin called TrueUSD, which Justin eventually bought sort of like the company that owns the minting function for it. And there was a lot of very like weird stuff that happened. Like they started their own lending protocol, started kind of like there was this unknown supply showing up from nowhere that they're borrowing against. And like the stablecoin depegged a bunch. And so people, but a lot of lending protocols still had it. A lot of exchanges had, obviously Huobi had it.
There's also HBTC, which is Huobi's Bitcoin peg, which is trading at 26K.
Yeah, I was trying to do some research on this before the show, and I couldn't find much. But do you guys know the backstory on what happened with HBTC? Because it basically started the depeg like beginning of this year, and then there was this rumor thread floating around for a while that like Justin is looting the coffers of HBTC, but I think that's just like redemptions are turned off. So I don't know what's going on there, but it does seem very weird that something that's supposed to be like a WBTC clone effectively is now like.
I mean, every other wrap Bitcoin that's not like TBTC, which is like more decentralized but very hard to get liquidity for, but like you can definitely be sure your Bitcoin is there.
Yeah.
All the other like centralized wrap Bitcoin, not all, but like most have had some crazy deep. I mean, obviously the SOBTC during the FTX collapse was the craziest one because it just like completely depegged to zero almost.
It's all been kind of sus, and I don't understand why it's so hard to run this business. It feels like
this is why I'm like, okay, if they keep the consortium and there's enough other minters and redeemers, I'm a little okay with it because again, I feel like they do.
I think it's the custody, right? It's not the
custody is the real problem. That's true.
So I was looking. So normally with a custodian, right, they're charging some percentage of AUM, and like that's sort of their model. Obviously, for these like wrapped Bitcoin tokens, they can't really do that because you can't like draw down the reserves like it's supposed to be pegged, and so they charge like a few bips on mints and redeems, and so there's a little bit of a spread when you go and try to trade this thing. But I was looking on, I think DeFi Llama had a good chart on like total fees earned since inception of HBTC, and it was only like 12 mil. So it's really not a very good product to operate. Like you're not making anything. In some ways, it's cannibalistic with your existing, maybe better, your custody product with better economics. And so I'm assuming BitGo also just wants to get rid of this thing. Like it's not a great product line for them. So
I see.
To be fair, that's been true. That there haven't been, the other thing of the WBTC versus some of the other derivatives is people tend to mint large positions with it, so they pay one fee. It's not like there's like a high volume of fees versus some of the other assets just because of the price of Bitcoin. And so like the people who are doing it tend to do it at a sufficient size. One thing I will say, maybe if we take a more optimistic view, is that all of the people who've been working on these like decentralized Bitcoin alternatives that basically have just not so far succeeded due to capital efficiency reasons. Like it's hard to have liquidity for them. They're slower, whatever. All of them have the greatest opportunity in history right now.
If you look at the governance forum, it's all filled with like BTC pegged decentralized projects pitching to maker governance.
All of the restake BTC LRTs, they're all going to be there also.
Oh yeah, they're all there. They're all in the governance forum.
It's going to be interesting because like I do feel like because everyone knows the market is there, there's going to be this mad rush to try to fill the gap.
Well, but on some level, like what WBTC is also telling you is that this market kind of sucks if you're monetizing this way. So you need to find some other way to monetize if you want to run this business.
Well, you don't have to cut the TBTC type of case. You don't really pay the custody cost per se. Like you pay the initial validator on and off cost.
Right. I mean, you are paying some, security fee.
For sure, you're definitely paying a fee, but yeah, you have a little more kind of flexibility.
Right, but that fee should be in some sense proportional to the total amount outstanding, which is basically a custody fee.
It is a custody fee, but it's one that I think people are probably more willing to.
Yeah, exactly. Which is almost a signal. Like if people are willing to offboard WBTC, that's maybe a sign of like, hey, BitGo, kick out iBit. What is it? BitGlobal? BitGlobal, yeah. Kick out BitGlobal and just start charging.
You're going after BlackRock.
I take it back. Please don't sue me at BlackRock. So kick out BitGlobal and just say, look, we're going to charge a custody fee. And all of a sudden it becomes an amazing business instead of being this like crappy $12 million since inception type of business. And you can compete toe to toe with like the TBDCs and the other.
I think the other thing that maybe is worth considering is that when WBTC came out, one of the main advantages of using it was market making Bitcoin was really inefficient, even between exchanges, but it was very easy to do market making on WBTC because Ethereum transfers are faster. But now you have a million alternatives. So like, why wouldn't I just use Solana or Tron or anywhere else where there's enough liquidity? So the market making use case, which has high volume, which is high fees for the custodian, like has gone away. So I think that's the real problem is like, how do you replace that?
Yeah.
activity?
If you look at the fee chart, basically it has a nice curve in like, 2019, 2020, and then it's just been kind of slowly tapering off. So, and also obviously there's ways to trade perps, in DeFi that there weren't before. And so, kind of that core use case of Bitcoin, margin trading exposure in DeFi is also kind of whittled away.
Yeah. I think they just have such a huge liquidity advantage. It feels like a waste to just say, well, our business model doesn't seem to be very good for this environment, so let's just like hand off the business, turn into JV, and then let them run it.
That is what they're doing.
No. I was just saying that feels like a strategic mistake. Like it feels like they'd be better off just changing the business model.
Yeah,
and saying, look, if you want to redeem, here's a window to redeem. Otherwise, it's now going to be an AUC business or an assets under custody business.
Yeah.
So
I wonder why Justin wants the business though, because he's smart.
I don't want.
Oh yes, he is smart, and he loves businesses with lots of collateral on the balance sheet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is every Justice
like
on planet
like True USD. He has a history with this, which is why I think people are afraid. On the other hand, I don't really know. I don't know enough about BitGo's current existence, but I'm imagining there's a reason that is,
Yeah.
they needed to get acquired and that didn't happen. So now they're.
Someone was saying that BitGo raised a round after the failed acquisition. And they were saying, oh, there's an Asian fund that invests in that round. So the speculation is it's Justin.
I mean, honestly, I like those types of rumors. So
Yeah,
that's like,
this sounds very conspiratorial. I don't buy that.
but the thing is, Justin is, might be shameless, but there's no way you can say he's not smart. He's one of the smartest on-chain users. Period.
Yes. He is very shrewd. He's very shrewd. And so we'll see how this plays out. So far, I think it was supposed to go to a vote today, but I don't think the vote's been concluded yet. So still TBD.
There's still a lot of fighting. That forum
the
post,
fighting is not
forum
done.
post is one of the ones where like I go to the bathroom, I come back, and I get the little bubble that says 3 unread.
Yeah. There's definitely more fighting to be done. So we'll see how this drama plays out. But it's very interesting sort of update in the world of DeFi dramas. So speaking of VCs and investors, there was another news story that's been making the rounds about the SEC subpoenaing 3 crypto VCs. So this story sort of came as a report on a rumor. So it's not confirmed by anybody. It's not confirmed by the SEC, not confirmed by VCs. But I can say we've also heard this story about the SEC subpoenaing some crypto funds. And luckily, we did not get one such subpoena, or at least not about this. We've gotten subpoena before, obviously. Yet. So who knows? Please don't subpoena us. We'd prefer not to.
Don't be based in New York.
But so the story here, I think, is getting a little bit subverted by people who don't really understand what the SEC cares about and what kind of things would show up in a subpoena. And so these subpoenas, as far as I understand, and I should make clear, I don't have express knowledge of this, but my understanding is that what's going on is that they're being investigated for becoming statutory underwriters. So what is a statutory underwriter? A statutory underwriter is somebody who basically, normally when a VC invests into a token project in the US, they will have a 1-year cliff. So they will not invest any tokens before 1 year. The reason why you do that is that is an exception to the broker-dealer rules that normally require you to be an underwriter in order to sell something before a year. And so there are certain crypto funds or crypto VCs that may have been selling assets before the 1-year cliff. And if they sold an asset before the 1-year cliff, then they would be liable for these statutory underwriter laws. You don't have a BD license. You're not supposed to be selling things that you bought from insiders. And that supposedly is, now again, this is sort of speculation. I don't know if this is exactly what they're being investigated for, but supposedly this is the story. So this is definitely not everybody who's getting hit up about this, not every VC, because most VCs in the US especially the institutional ones, very assiduously follow this rule of 1-year cliff and then multi-year vest. And that's why that rule is there, is because this is a law in the US that the SEC has been, it's pretty clear about. And most investors have followed this rule, even without having any enforcement actions for the last 5-6 years, just because this is the most obvious reading of what the law says about tokens, regardless of whether or not you think they're securities. So that's the story. I don't know what you guys think about all the speculation that's winding around on Twitter about this.
I think people like it because they like to theory craft a little bit, where people see subpoena and they think, bad thing, when really just like a request for information. Like I said, everyone has gotten a subpoena pretty much. It's a request for information. And then 2, I think the scope of it was pretty broad. It was all token investments from whatever period of time, which is kind of insane in terms of scope for ask. But I don't know.
But that's how you would dig up. Have they done this? Right?
Yeah.
Anybody who's gotten a reputation for doing this, for selling tokens early, you'd be like, show me all the tokens you've ever had and all your buys and sells.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, but I would be more interested in what time period the person violated this. Was this before Luna? Was this in between Luna and FTX? Was this after FTX? Because I feel like in those regimes, I can guess very different actors would have been the ones subpoenaed. I that's why I like it, because it's like you can now craft a choose your own adventure of.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear before 2017, 2018, this was probably getting violated all the time because people just did not have
FBG.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not US regulated, so they're not going to get
I know, but
SEC
I just
subpoenas.
met someone who
Yeah. So I before that, also just the norms around this stuff were not as well established, right? So I remember when I first came in the industry, I remember having a conversation with somebody who's now a very prominent founder about they were recruiting me to potentially join their project. And they were like, yeah, we want you to be part of the early team for this. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So what's the vesting? And it's like, vesting? What do you mean vesting? And I'm like, wait, you're not going to have vesting? Shouldn't you have vesting? And it's like, no. If you sell your tokens early, you're an idiot. That's the check on selling your tokens early, because like obviously they're just going to do this. And this was during the bull market, right? So everything was doing this constantly. And then we all learned a big lesson as an industry, and everybody started vesting everything. So it definitely, like, the norms have shifted a lot, especially since
the irony is
cycle.
the reason I say this is I remember in 2023 I got so many doc updates that were like, hey, we're increasing your vesting I feel like that. So that's why I'm saying, like, there's one era where it's like implausible, which is like the post FTX era, because like everyone was like, nope, vesting's going up, vesting's going up.
Right.
Then there was the pre-Luna era where people were definitely fast and loose and pretending they were a hedge fund, and that certainly, that era it could be like everyone from a small fund to a gigantic fund. But in the Luna to FTX blow up era, I feel like that would have to be someone who's so distressed that they did it. And like that's my rough, like, I don't know. You have a quizzical look on your face.
I found this exercise to be a little bit boring. Like entertaining a group of VCs who
we're early stage investors.
Want to guess like who are the
Hey, we're movers and shakers in the crypto industry. Also, you used to be an investor. What are you talking about?
I
Group
was
of
never
investors.
an investor.
You were doing deals when you were at Consensus.
Well, yeah, because
So there you go. All right,
I'm
apologize.
a well thought after angel.
Oh, well thought after angel. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's very, very, very elite of you.
Yeah. No, but I feel like, because when I saw the news, I was like, everyone was guessing who they are. I feel like your framework probably makes sense.
Was that framework?
No. My framework for it.
I'm kidding.
Ouch. But I feel like every VC has experienced, like, the VCs behave so differently before and nowadays, because just the different investors going in.
Yeah.
And like from a founder perspective, even like I read this news and I was like, what's the impact to me? Do I just not come to New York when I raise next time? Like, should I go to Dubai?
Yeah.
Is everyone moving offshore?
I feel like the impact is probably just like some people who are on your cap table might be more annoying now if they're the ones.
Well,
they're going to be like, hey, we need these docs to prove that we did X.
To be clear, subpoenas do not necessarily mean enforcement actions, right? So we got to wait and see what's going to happen.
For them to give the SEC everything they want, they might be going to whichever companies and being like, oh, we have to like prove some other thing, and we didn't get all these docs.
Maybe. I would doubt that. I would think more somebody's like, oh shit, let's like, figure out why. Like, if somebody sold early when they weren't supposed to, that is a oh shit type moment that we have to provide this to the SEC, or we're going to be doing some obstruction of justice stuff. So, but I don't think it's going to reach out. I don't think it's going to affect a portfolio company. It will just make you say, oh, I should not work with that fund.
Yeah.
I think they're probably going to like start asking about the companies too.
Maybe. But it's a lot harder to reach the companies, right? Like the funds are directly in the SEC's ambit.
No, for sure. I just think they're going to annoy the shit out of the companies. Like, I feel like anytime investors in my company have ever had some kind of, you forget about regulatory things, had a bad audit, I suddenly get 20 fucking emails like, oh, like send us this. So like, I will tell you, I think it will.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you on that. Okay. So I want to move to one last topic. Well, we still have time. So there was one interview that actually Pac-Man, the founder of Blast and of Blur, also known as Tiashin, he had an interview that he had a very interesting perspective on this cycle that I wanted to get everybody's reaction to, because I think it's you've noticed in this cycle that it feels like there's a lot more pessimism, a lot more almost nihilism about crypto from a lot of the crypto insiders, right? There's a sense of almost fatigue. People talk about, oh, there's not enough applications, there's too much infrastructure. You guys are maybe a little bit of a symptom of this. Exactly. And so Tiashin's claim is that the reason why the current crypto cycle hasn't played out like previous crypto cycles is that previous crypto cycles were all oriented around some particular innovation. So, previously it was around ICOs and decentralized capital formation. Then it was around, the metaverse, and then it was around
you're skipping
NFTs.
DeFi and Uniswap.
Of course,
the most
DeFi.
important one
Okay,
of all
yes,
of
okay,
these, because
DeFi.
it actually was a new technology.
Okay, yeah. So the rise of DeFi, the rise of NFTs, the metaverse story, and in this cycle, it doesn't feel like there is a new 0 to 1 thing that's getting people excited, and that's part of the reason why this cycle is sputtering in the way that it is. So that's his claim. Curious to get you guys' take on that story, because I found it thought-provoking. What do you guys think?
I feel like everyone has been saying that for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is nothing new.
I agree.
I mean, I'm a protocol founder, right? So I'm obviously always looking for new things. But yeah, this for the last 6 months, or even when I was at Consensus, there's really nothing that's innovative. Like that's 0 to 1, right? Now I'm just getting like 100 pumped up fun-ish launch pads on all sorts of chains and have a bit of unique flavor. You're getting a bit of AI and crypto, but everyone knows it's a bit of vaporware. So I think people try so hard to find something new, but it's not there. And no one has succeeded. I don't think so.
And I think the way we started the episode about SBC being kind of like uninspiring is like an equivalent on the even further back end of the research side, that there's nothing coming from that area either.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm
But
just getting
we
pessimism.
have-
Pure pessimism? Is that the answer?
The MegaETH has answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there are new things, new applications. They're not necessarily new ideas. Like Polymarket, for example, is now working, but prediction markets have been around for a while.
Yeah.
But it's just not thematic. And I think that's maybe more the point is all these other cycles, there was a big theme and someone kind of cracks it, and then the whole industry kind of like ODs on it, and they're like, okay, that was too much. That was too much ICOs, and then we're kind of have a come down and
too much DeFi, too much metaverse.
And now it feels like there aren't a million prediction markets. There's not a million ZK, TLS,
I am
AI
actually seeing a
kind
ton
of
of
thing.
prediction markets, but yeah.
No. There's a ton of people raising for them. There's not like a ton of them that can attract any liquidity
Yes,
or
yes,
usage.
yes.
That's like it is actually almost monopolistic, which is like weird because like the other crypto stuff was much less monopolistic. Like there were many competitors, or at least like 5.
Right.
It doesn't feel like that for a lot of these things.
I think like DeFi summer was like every week someone was launching some new thing and it was being tweaked slightly, and then someone was launching a new thing, and it's not really like that other than I guess Pump That Fun.
YFV, YFII.
Yeah.
YSVI.
Oh my god. Haven't thought about that in a while.
I have a thesis for, the cycle that's going to bring up by MegaETH. We're very bullish on the 2017 ICO scam ideas.
Okay.
Like, think about decentralized VPN, right? I don't know, dental coin, color coin, whatever. Like,
That's one you might. That's one step
was
too
a
far.
step.
All right,
That's
elaborate.
But I think a lot of I feel like everybody got into crypto because there is one idea, whether it's supply chain or, I don't know, VPN or whatever, that just like tickle this butterfly. You're like, oh, wow, there is some sort of efficiency unlock via coordination that's there. And I think that's why 2017 we have a bunch of ICO coins, but they were not serious and the infrastructure was not ready. Like think about putting energy on the grid, right?
Yeah.
Like that is one of the 50 spokes that Consensus had. Our thesis is that let's go revisit the 2017 ideas and see what can we do nowadays, but without just enforcing a coin into it. That is what I think is the next wave.
I think there is merit to that. Like a lot of even something as simple as like, deep learning, right? This is a very old idea that only became feasible in the past, 10, 15 years because of changes in technology. And like, maybe there's something thematic to that for crypto as well, where it's like, yeah, maybe some of these old ideas weren't bad. They were just early. And like, even something like perps, people have been trying to build decentralized perps for years and years and years. And now it's like, okay, maybe we actually had the tech to like make something good. And like, and the market's here and there's liquidity here. And like, it's not wrong. It's just early.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I do agree that there's something, like, it feels like what this cycle is about, if it's about anything, is it's about quantity becoming a quality of its own, right? And it's like, there were a lot of things that were working on very small scales. Like, stable coins were just much smaller. And then, poly market volumes were much smaller. And like decentralized perps were much smaller. And they were there. It's not like we invented these things in the last 2 years, but now they're big. And the bigness of them actually makes them qualitatively different and makes them, now Polymarket is like the primary market for the election. It's Perplexity just integrated Polymarket instead of integrating like, 538 or whatever the modern equivalent of 538 would be. And that feels to me like something that happens not as a 0 to 1, okay, there's a new paper published about this, but it's the 1 to 100. And the 1 to 100, in some sense, like intellectually, it's less interesting because it's just more of the same, but bigger. But that is such an important part of how crypto actually does the thing that we were all talking about 3 to 4 years ago, right? Like the stories we were telling in some way are premature. Now the stories we're telling are actually right-sized, but they're actually happening, and that feels like the difference to me in this cycle. Like the thing you were talking about last time about Georgia, right? And you were in Georgia and you were like buying Tether with a POS system, buying toothpaste. Like that couldn't have happened in the last cycle. Even though that's what we talked about in the last cycle, right? Everybody talked about, oh my God, you're going to buy.
Maybe like 2 or 3 cycles ago.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Like,
people have been talking about this forever.
Idea, see?
Yeah, okay. So given your thesis, what is the pets.com of 2017 that will be the DoorDash of this cycle for you, in your mind?
The pets.com.
So in 1999, pets.com or what was the delivery one called?
Webvan.
Webvan. Well, like, what 1999 Webvan, something that failed in 2017 versus DoorDash and something now.
Augur Poly Market?
Yeah, but I guess I mean for the net, what?
Okay, the next generation.
Yeah, we're obviously exploring something where we're right now working with a builder is a decentralized VPN idea. People probably don't know the top 6 VPN in the world are controlled by this one company. It's definitely not private and it's definitely not secure. But with MegaETH, right, with our technology, you can actually have a VPN that is decentralized, that's private by nature, but actually doesn't sacrifice performance. That's what we're always saying, right? Like the MegaETH application pair Web2 performance with Web3 crypto nativeness. So that's one we're excited about.
So Orchid is Webvan.
Orchid is Webvan. Oh, NIM.
That's what you're saying.
Whatever that NIM is.
Yeah, damn. Okay, that's a deep
NIM
cut.
was a little after. They didn't ICO, but Orchid definitely ICOs for the VPN.
But VPN and like Tor, I think are like a different scale.
Yeah. The mixnet stuff, I guess, is different.
Yeah. That's like a different scale of security that you're trying to get there. But I mean, I think this is also very topical because you spend so much time in Asia, and of course, folks who are using crypto in China. I would love to hear you speak to that a little bit about the role of VPNs for people using crypto in China. Because I think everybody kind of knows China matters in crypto, and everybody knows people in China are still trading crypto. They're still trading on Binance somehow, even though they're not supposed to. Like it's all very shadowy, I think, for a lot of people in the West.
The Jupiter and Hyperliquid volume isn't coming from the US. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's like give us a glimpse of what is the average user in China doing, and what is the role that VPNs play for people in China.
Yeah, we didn't think about the VPN is for Chinese users. Actually, Middle East. Right? Most of the applications are blocked in the Middle East. Like if you live in the Middle East, you gotta fucking have a VPN, otherwise it doesn't work.
Right.
And a lot of people use VPN not just because of lack of access, it's for privacy as well. So I don't think this is a China thing.
Sure.
I mean, VPN is a huge TAM. It's a big market.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, but going back to the question about, people in Chinese, it's mainly just trading, right? They're the one who will just go on Telegram, the little mini game, and just keep tapping, hoping there's something out of it. Most of the airdrop farms operated out of China. But yeah, I still think China is where liquidity is. Where novel, where the exit liquidity sometimes are, which is very sad. I also think I'm actually very bullish on Chinese builders. I make it actually sort of my own mission to kind of inspire builders in Asia because I think, they're so far from New York where, the cabals are hanging out. They just don't know what's good.
Where the podcasts get recorded.
The podcasts get recorded.
There's the Chinese equivalent cabals also.
But they're very different.
We were just talking about one earlier on the show.
Yes, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, I actually think we're gonna get a generation of Chinese and Asian builders because the economy sucks.
Totally agree with this, right? And there's been a huge Chinese diaspora of folks who are now very, very influential in building a lot of stuff in the crypto industry. The thing that's fascinated me the most, and maybe we can just end because I know we're coming up on time soon. One of the things that we learned from the Binance CFTC case was how much of Binance's volume still comes from mainland China, which obviously it's illegal. You're not supposed to be doing that. So how are they doing that? And I think part of the answer, and you can correct me if I've missed anything here, but there's basically what is it? It's not Tuvalu. What's the island nation where you get like the digital passport? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I do know what you're
those
talking about.
Caribbean islands.
No, there's one in
It's like-
Asia. I thought it was
like
is it on
Polynesia or
Tuvalu?
something?
Yeah.
Maybe it's Tuvalu. Whatever. There's some country where you can get
Palau.
a digital ID. Palau. That's what it is. You can get a digital ID in Palau, and then using a Palau digital ID, which you don't have to be in person to actually go collect. You can just sign a form online. You become a digital citizen of Palau, and using a Palau ID, you can sign up on Binance and start trading. And this is how a lot of mainland Chinese people get onto Binance, is with this Palau ID. And there's like, you have a Chinese sounding name, but apparently you're a Palau citizen, so it's cool. And that's how Binance has 20% of their trading volume comes from mainland Chinese. And so China, one way or another, will always find some way to get onto these things, right? And to get access to crypto.
I think the entire world does. I think African do this. And
Right.
Latinos do that. Yeah, I don't think it's particular. But I mean,
No, I don't think it's unique to China, but it's also, China has always been such a big part of the crypto industry. And just by kind of mass, China is obviously, the second largest country in the world, the second largest economy in the world. So it is really, really significant to understand the gravitational force they exert on the rest of the crypto industry.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Brother Bing. We appreciate you sharing your insights with us.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure.
Always. All right. I think with that, we can wrap. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.